The gentleman from Nebraska, Mr. Flood, is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Director Chopra, thanks for your testimony today. I want to talk about student loan repayment. In March, Nelnet, the largest federal student loan servicer, submitted SEC filings disclosing a significant modification to its federal contract with the Office of Federal Student Aid, or FSA, showing that the Biden administration has slashed its funding for student loan servicing operations as 40+ million borrowers returned to repayment on September 1. Nelnet disclosed these layoffs due to the rate cut. Across the board, federal student loan servicers are entering return to payment significantly understaffed. That's a concern. The contract modification also shows FSA's acknowledgement that it is paying less for student loan servicing as borrowers return to repayment. At this time, I'd like to submit both of Nelnet's 8K filings related to the contract modification for the hearing record. They are dated March 22nd, 2023 and March 27th, 2023.
Without objection.
Director Chopra, can you commit to me here today that your agency will not enforce against federal student loan servicers for providing service levels commensurate to their compensation as articulated in their current contracts?
So they're only responsible with respect to the CFPB for federal consumer financial protection laws. So they have to adhere to those laws based on, and if they enter into contracts with third parties, with governments, I do take
With all due respect, Mr. Chopra, they're entering into a contract with the Biden administration's FSA office. So I think I maybe interrupted at a point where you were going to acknowledge.
Yeah, I was just going to say that there's no question that the resources of the Office of Federal Student Aid to hire contractors, I understand that it's a very dire situation and that if they can't adequately get the right support, the return to repayment will not be successful. But I just want to be transparent and open with you. We can't consider their contract negotiations when it comes to compliance with the law. They are a private party who is free to enter into contracts as they deem appropriate. So, but I hear your point, though.
I think I'm really sounding an alarm here as 40 million borrowers come back into repayment. This is a bad situation if the FSA does not provide the resources, and this Congress does not provide the resources to make that happen. And would you agree with me, it is going to be the most difficult for those reentering repayment that need an extra level of support and service to ensure that they don't have an adverse effect on their credit report so that they understand how to make those payments. Do you share that concern?
Yeah, I agree with you. We need to make sure that, and in some ways, if there's not adequate support, the problems we could occur could be very, very big.
You and I agree. The decisions by this administration to politicize the student loan program through extended, unnecessary pauses in pursuit of illegal loan forgiveness has harmed borrowers, has resulted in a confluence of events that all but guarantees repayment to be exceedingly difficult, and no one but this administration is to blame when and if return to repayment is a disaster. I have more than 3,000 student loan servicer employees in my district. When the FSA decides to cut rates, they are jeopardizing jobs in my district, but as we have discussed here, they're cutting down on the service that are provided to people that are going to work, that got an education, that have to pay back these loans, and I don't want them to miss the opportunity to figure out how to get that money back to the creditor and make sure they don't suffer any ill effects on their credit reports and that we get them back on the road to repayment in a good way.
And an appropriate level of service is probably good for everybody. It increases the likelihood of longer repayment or appropriate repayment, and as you mentioned, avoids the consequences of default that can be very significant for an individual and the system.
Absolutely. And it would be a disaster if the federal government refuses to pay adequate rates to servicers on one hand and then starts going after them for service quality on the other. And I think that's the point that I really want to make. And with that, I yield back.